Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is Haley Gibson. Today I want to review what is Candida yeast. We are hearing all sorts of things about Candida yeast overgrowth and how it's causing all of these problems for people. And I just want to address what it is, why it's a problem, and how to test for it. How do you even know that you have it? So I will also be giving natural strategies to beat Candida yeast. I know that it's a problem and a lot of people struggle with it. And they also struggle with figuring out the right diet, the right supplements, how do I go about treating it? So I'll be reviewing some natural strategies to help out with that. Candida albicans is a fungal yeast, and it occurs naturally in the body. It naturally lives in harmony with the microorganisms that are in our gut, as well as the rest of our body, and it actually performs some important functions. So when does it become a problem? It happens when certain lifestyle-based environmental conditions upset the balance of microflora in the body. So this allows yeast to proliferate, and then it becomes dominant. Certain lifestyle measures can be taken to help you restore this balance, and that's what I want to cover today. So it's usually in the mucous membranes of the intestinal tract, the mouth, the throat, and the genitals. Whenever I thought about Candida yeast when I worked in the hospital, I always thought about it coming out through the genitalia or underneath the breast is where I commonly found. But what I didn't realize is that this overgrowth can be internal as well. All right, so whenever it does overgrow, it can actually burrow holes into the intestinal tract and enter into the bloodstream, so that's not a good thing. A little bit about myself before we continue diving into the content. Like I said, my name is Haley Gibson. I am a registered nurse and a functional diagnostic nutritionist, and I work with people to help them get to the root cause of their problems. I actually left the hospital environment because I just found that we were sending home patients who had heart attacks or gastrointestinal issues or strokes or cancer or whatever it may be, anything under the sun. We were taking them, first of all, the hospital diet was atrocious. They would send my diabetic patient pancakes to eat in the morning. I wouldn't put it past a patient to be eating cake first thing in the morning, and this is just not helping teach our patients what they're supposed to be eating or what kind of lifestyle they're supposed to live to avoid coming back to the hospital again. So I wanted to go into an environment where I could actually help people change their lifestyle and their diet habits so that they can stay out of the hospital. So that's a little bit about myself. And the other two pictures, that's myself with my fiance. We're getting married in October. Super excited about that. And then down below that, just our Mountain Challenge crew. All right, let's do this. So what happens when Candida gets into the bloodstream? So it's able to make its way into any organ or region of the body. It actually puts out over 70 different toxins into the bloodstream, which we're going to talk more about. The body will often create an immune response, so it tries to attack it. And it also tries to attack the toxins and eliminate them. So this causes higher inflammatory levels because when your immune system is activated, it releases things like cytokines that are inflammatory. And this is part of the healing process. But once you have just, immune system overload, cytokine overload, and other inflammatory mechanisms overloading the body, this is highly inflammatory. And we can see a lot of immune system dysfunction because of this, leading to things like autoimmunity. So the liver has to detoxify all of these really toxic elements that are being secreted by Candida yeast. So when it's present in high amounts for a long period of time, it overwhelms the liver. And this causes an increased whole body toxicity and immune dysregulation. So that can lead to disruption of the immune system and not only lead to autoimmunity, but it can also cause disturbances that could lead to cancer. So this little slide here just kind of shows you how it can happen and then some of the things you may experience. Mental impairment, fatigue, and exhaustion are definitely the most common. I oftentimes have people tell me that they feel hungover and they don't even drink. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about why that is here in a moment. Food intolerances, pain and cramping in the abdominal area, disorder of other organs, specifically the liver, and then really becoming susceptible to other infections. Okay. So there are 70 different toxins. We talked about that. So this is why we may have a whole host of symptoms if Candida is alive and not feel like we're able to pinpoint what the cause is. Well, if yeast is alive, we have so many toxins circulating in our body. So acetaldehyde, I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but this is a metabolic byproduct of Candida. So Candida actually creates acetaldehyde in our body. So it's similar to carbon dioxide that you exhale after inhaling oxygen. High levels of this lead to, of course, inflammation and oxidative stress. And this can damage DNA, which could lead to the cancer formation that we spoke about. Too much acetaldehyde is actually the equivalent of alcohol poisoning. An accumulation of acetaldehyde is associated with fetal alcohol syndrome. There's also evidence that acetaldehyde is associated with Alzheimer's disease. So acetaldehyde, nasty, nasty stuff. So gliotoxin is another one. We're not going to talk about all 70 of these toxins, I promise. I just want to touch on the important ones. Gliotoxin is another major toxin created by yeast, and it suppresses the immune system and actually kills some immune cells. It also destroys liver cells. So if we need our liver to detox it, and then one of the toxins is actually destroying the liver cells, you can see how this is a really vicious cycle, because a weak liver, it further reduces the immune activity and it promotes a greater degree of autoimmunity. Gliotoxin is high in patients with multiple sclerosis. Several studies have shown this. And what is multiple sclerosis? This is an autoimmune disease that affects the nervous system and the brain. So, like I said, we're not going to talk all day about the toxins, but this just shows 2 of the 70 really toxic metabolites and what it can do. These toxins help Candida protect itself against your immune system, the person's immune system. And studies have found that yeast actually forms something called biofilm. So this is like, if you think of shining armor around someone or a bulletproof vest, it protects you. It protects the yeast from being susceptible to natural or pharmaceutical antimicrobials. So the biofilm increases the production of acetaldehyde and gliotoxin as well. So once it's been present for a while, it can become very difficult to get rid of. So what would be some symptoms that someone presents with when they have Candida yeast? Overgrowth, allergies, itchy ears and skin. This is very common. Low energy, like I said, probably the most common complaint I hear is energy, fatigue, malaise, that hungover feeling every day, brain fog. Digestive symptoms, so if bloating, constipation, diarrhea, that's something that goes hand in hand with irritable bowel syndrome. So Candida yeast can be a factor in irritable bowel syndrome. Autoimmune diseases like arthritis, Hashimoto's, lupus, psoriasis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, you name it. A lot of times they go hand in hand together. Not to say that Candida yeast is the sole cause of these conditions, but it could definitely be contributing to those conditions. So if you can get the yeast under control, then you may see an improvement of symptoms related to those autoimmune issues. Skin and nail fungal infections, so athlete's foot or toenail fungus. Skin problems, so psoriasis, eczema, hives, rashes, this sort of thing. Mood swings is a big one. Anxiety, depression, irritability, so issues going to sleep is oftentimes found. Vaginal infections, UTIs, rectal or vaginal itching. I've also seen that one a lot, especially in the hospital setting. Brain fog, ADHD, concentration, problems or poor memory, strong sugar and refined carbohydrate cravings. If you find yourself, I want to eat healthy, and just you have the most unbearable cravings, that could be a sign that you have some Candida yeast going on. And this slide kind of talks a little bit about what happens, but the next slide definitely does a better job. of what causes Candida yeast. Let's talk about that. So like I said, Candida is normal. When does it become an issue? What contributes to that? Eating a diet high in refined carbohydrates and sugar, this feeds the yeast. So continuing that can definitely cause it to continue growing. Consumption of alcohol, or a lot of alcohol, not just, your glass of wine every once in a while, but if you're consuming high quantities of alcohol. Tap water, so tap water has chlorine in it, and this can actually kill off good bacteria and leave room for Candida yeast to grow. Taking birth control can leave you at higher risk for developing it. Living a high-stress lifestyle, which is probably the most common for Americans. We like to throw everything on ourselves and try to conquer everything. Taking a round of antibiotics that killed too many friendly bacteria. So taking antibiotics when they're not necessary can definitely leave you at risk, or even if they are necessary, just making sure that you take the precautions necessary. So re-inoculate your gut with good bacteria while you're taking it. Take a good probiotic alongside. Not together, the antibiotic will kill that too, but repopulate it, an hour away from foods. And then you can also begin rebuilding your gut lining, which we'll talk about. If you want to take antibiotics, there's a few strategies at the end of this presentation when I talk about natural strategies to beat yeast. You can also apply those when you take antibiotics, or you can take natural antimicrobials. Antacids for heartburn, why would that contribute to yeast overgrowth? Well, antacids prevent your body from creating stomach acid. They neutralize that stomach acid. Your stomach acid actually acts to sterilize your food. So if it's not acidic, it can't sterilize your food. So this leaves you more prone to infection. Smoking, big one. High mercury in the blood and tissue. So this can be from, vaccines. This can be from dental fillings that are made of mercury in your mouth. So that leaves you at a higher risk. Or sexual intercourse with someone who has a vaginal or penile yeast overgrowth. So you come into contact, it is passed by skin contact as well. So how do we find it? There's a couple ways, and I'm going to give you an at-home little test you can do too for free, just to set you in the right direction and see if it's worth testing. But we like to use the comprehensive stool test. And this is just a little picture, who needs the test, and it goes over all of that, lots of the things I've already talked about. So that's the test that we use. And then this also looks at different gut bacteria, can find parasites. It also looks at your gut's immune system. It can tell how you are secreting pancreatic enzymes. It can also see how you're utilizing short-chain fatty acids. So there's a lot we can tell from this test. So this is the cheaper test. It's free. You can do it at home. So how do you do this? First, you want to get a glass of water. Drink a glass of water in the morning as soon as you wake up. And after drinking some water, fill a clear glass with room temperature bottled water. Work up a good spit, and you spit into the glass of water. Check the water every 15 minutes or so for up to an hour, and then you should observe the movement of the strings. Your saliva should stay at the top, like in a little cohesive blob. And if you see strings or fibers like that glass on the left, or if you see cloudy specks, like, let's see, the glass on the right, like particles suspended in the water, or if you see cloudy saliva that sinks to the bottom of the glass, like the one in the middle, all three of these can indicate that it may be a problem. If you have allergies or you've recently eaten some dairy products, you'll likely test positive on the spit test. So dehydration can also lead to a positive reading, which means that you're far more likely to test positive after waking in the morning. So if you do this test, this doesn't mean, oh, you have Candida, but it is a good sign. So if you do get this test, I recommend doing the Digestive System Health Panel, or you can do the organic acid test. So the organic acid test is my personal favorite just because we can see so much going on in the body. Not only do we test for yeast, but it tests for bacterial markers, neurotransmitters, B vitamin status, how you're processing fatty acids, as well as glucose. It just looks at so many different things that we get a good picture of the body overall. All right, so let's talk about the 5 steps to beat Candida. First, good nutrition. You got to starve the Candida out. So we'll talk about what that looks like. 2, antimicrobial support, whether that's pharmaceutical or natural. Of course, I recommend using natural first. We're going to talk about some good antimicrobials for beating Candida. 3, you can improve liver function. Like I said, the liver is huge for actually metabolizing those toxins and getting rid of Candida, so we want to really support the liver throughout this process. 4, we're going to strengthen the immune system. 5, we need to restore the gut lining. So let's dive into each of these a little bit more. So the diet, first thing we want to do is eliminate sugars or anything that turns into sugar. Candida loves sugar. So we want to really have a diet that's low in carbohydrates. Most individuals with Candida have serious gluten sensitivities. So it's very important to eliminate all gluten containing grains and most grains altogether, other than small amounts of quinoa or small amounts of root vegetables like beets or sweet potatoes and squash from time to time. So the main bulk of what the diet should be is lots of phytonutrient-rich vegetables, your healthy fats, your clean proteins. So this is the same nutrition plan that I recommend for my leaky gut patients that suffer with issues like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or irritable bowel syndrome, maybe some other digestive complaints. So typically, if someone has issues with Candida, you may have issues with bacterial overgrowth as well, or vice versa. They typically go hand in hand. So we really want to boost the immune system with antioxidant-rich herbs, and we want to use healthy fat sources, so lots of coconut products, avocados, olive oil, nuts and seeds. We want to limit the nuts and seeds. They can be hard on the digestive system, but definitely having maybe a handful a day. Healthy protein includes things like wild-caught fish or grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, pasture-raised organic chicken and turkey, and eggs. Okay. So the medium-chain fats that are found in the coconut oil and the ghee and the grass-fed butter, these are actually antifungal, and they provide a great source of energy for the body. So I've even had Candida patients take up to 4 to 6 tablespoons of coconut oil daily for the antimicrobial properties as well as the energy. So how do you get that much oil in? Well, you can do it by adding maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons to a shake, maybe a tablespoon or 2 to coffee. Cooking meat and vegetables with 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and then you can add melting extra coconut oil over finished steamed or sauteed vegetables. So fermented foods. Typically, we take out fermented foods for 30 days just because we find that it can actually exacerbate the issue. So we'll take them out for 30 days. But after the initial period, you can add in things like sauerkraut, kimchi, coconut kefir, fermented grass-fed dairy, things like that, and begin with small amounts, just 1 to 2 tablespoons a day, and gradually add more over time. So this is just a slide depicting, what happens when we have good microbes versus overgrowth or bad microbes present in the body. So this Prescript Assist up here on the top left, this is a probiotic that we use that I find typically Candida clients respond pretty well to. So this contains humic and fulvic acids that help support the growth and development of the good microbes within the intestinal tract. Humic and fulvic acids are major organic constituents of soil, coal, streams, lakes, and ocean water. So what they do is help bind and eliminate yeast organisms, while the spore-forming microbes compete with the attachment sites in the gut and help to kick out the yeast and the bad bacteria. So I really like to use that one. Antimicrobial support. So some foods with antifungal properties would be coconut oil, The lauric acid is one of the best natural antifungals. Anti-candida protocols, like I said, maybe about 4 to 6 tablespoons daily to help overcome that. So this can also include coconut oil being added to our skin and added to our foods. Candida infections drain the body of trace minerals, alkaline salts, antioxidant reserves, nutrient stores. So to beat Candida, one needs to consume substantial amounts of powerful antioxidant-rich, anti-inflammatory herbs. So this would be things like cinnamon, turmeric, green tea, and ginger. So to improve our liver health, this will help us reboost the immune system. We want to rebuild glutathione levels, sulfur compounds, and methylation. I'm not going to dive into too much of what that means today, but one thing you want to remember is bitter is good for the liver. You want to use bitter herbs. This helps detox and helps stimulate bile and stomach acid flow. So Epsom salt baths, coffee enemas if necessary, oil pulling, dry brushing, intermittent fasting, water flushing, the infrared sauna. These are all really helpful for strengthening the liver. And they should be done whenever possible, along with consuming the liver-healthy foods. And those would be things like beets and radishes and Swiss chard, ginger, those sorts of things. So we also want to strengthen the immune system. And this is one that I want to talk about, the gut defense. So we use the gut defense to help boost up secretory IgA, which is an immunoglobulin. So this is secreted in the gut. It's in the endothelial lining of our gut. And basically, it helps us protect our body from infection. It helps fight off infection. It's the first line of immune defense in the gut. And a lot of times when we've had a chronic infection of some sort, that IgA level drops. First, it'll rise in response to infection, and then it will drop because our stores are depleted. So we definitely like using gut defense. It has that secretory IgA and colostrum in there to help rebuild the gut lining. And then to the right of that, you see L-glutamine. That is really great for helping rebuild the gut lining. Those two things would be something I would take, all three of those really, the prescriptive cyst, gut defense, and L-glutamine. If you choose to take antibiotics, I would have you take all three of those along with it. Because, all right. So the nutrition plan starts the process, but adding in extra bone broth or aloe vera, maybe slippery elm tea, L-glutamine, these are all really great strategies to help rebuild that gut lining. So 24 to 32 ounces of bone broth a day, fantastic for the gut. You can even add in up to 20 to 30 grams of L-glutamine. I know that our scoop is about 5 grams. So, you can take 6 scoops a day. So this is an advanced supplement protocol to help someone break through and kick Candida. There's a couple other things I want to touch on. So we talked about biofilms. If Candida has produced a biofilm, how do we break that down? Well, we use proteolytic enzymes to help break this down. So make sure you have that on board. Some antimicrobials like grapefruit seed extract and berberine, bayberry, things like that to help kill off the Candida yeast. And then you'll also, whenever you're killing these things, you have to remember that they exude toxins. Whenever our bodies die, we decay and put off toxins. Well, so do bacteria and yeast in our body. So adding in some activated charcoal to help absorb those extra toxins can help support your liver, as well as help reduce that die-off effect from killing off yeast. So a good antimicrobial, some proteolytic enzymes, and some activated charcoal. Great ideas for incorporating. That sums up this presentation. I hope that you learned something and can apply something to your life today. I work alongside Dr. David Jockers, and basically we work with people locally as well as over long distance. We can jump on a phone call or get on Skype. We work with people all over the world, and we just really believe in educating our patients I just love this quote. We'll end with this. So the doctor of the future will give no medication, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. I love that. That is 100% what we stand by. We want to educate our patients and help you adapt to the healthiest lifestyle possible to prevent disease coming into your life. So thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day.